Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today's going to be an interesting one. It's another one of the reels that Scott found out at a flea market. And sometimes I wonder when these folks sell these reels whether they know what they have or not. This one just looks like an average old reel, and it still turns. Interesting. But I did a little bit of research on it. It's the Bronson Viking reel, 300-yard capacity, made by the Bronson Reel Company in Bronson, Michigan. This reel was first introduced in 1934, and it was discontinued in 1940. So about a 6-year run on it. And boy, what a nice piece of work there. I assume this is a Viking image, even though it kind of looks more like an Indian. That's what I thought it was initially. But we're going to take this reel apart. And we're all going to learn together on this one. I have not serviced one of these reels, but we'll learn. And we'll see what it's made of and see if we can keep this one running. It does seem to work okay. I certainly have questions about drag washers that are over 80 years old. But other than that, we're going to see just what's going on. I do notice that we have some play in that bridge shaft. That would be expected. But it's interesting to note that this is a survivor. This is one of the reels that Scott found from a flea market out in the Los Angeles area, and it's always fun and wonder in getting you to wonder what was the history behind this one. How did it get there? Where did it fish, and so on. All right, I've taken the cap nut off. That's going to allow me to remove the handle. Underneath the handle is a shim washer, and then we have a star adjuster on under that. Now, I haven't been in this reel. I didn't go looking for the schematic, although I suspect I could find it because I found the information on the Bronson reel on the ORCA website. Now, ORCA is the Old Reel Collectors Association, and I belong to that, and I would encourage you, if you like old reels, go ahead and go do that as well. But there was a section in there on Bronson reels, and that's where I learned the Vikings aging and when it was made. All right, we're going to continue. We're going to take the star adjuster off. As I remove the external pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please hit that notification button. That way you'll learn the fishing videos that I'm putting up. Most of them have to do with reel repair and service. Some of them are informational in nature. Some of them go into current trends and the like. So if you subscribe and hit that notification button, you get a chance to see what I'm working on in my shop. And you'll get a chance to ask questions and view the videos on how to service and maybe learn a little bit more about the fishing reel industry while we're doing that. I cleaned up very nice, just some old grease. This shim washer went on the back end. So if you don't know the reels, I don't know this one, but if you don't know the reels, the best practice to do is to take pictures. Because if you get stuck, you're probably not going to find a manual for it. And that's going to lead to trouble in more places than you can imagine. So I like to think that as you take the pieces and parts off, if you come to a critical part, go ahead and take that picture. And that picture will help you during the reassembly. Well, I'm taking these screws off. I'm putting them into a parts tray. All my pieces and parts that I take off go into a parts tray. This is just the bottom of a fast food container. Normally I would lay them out on my table. I'm going to just put them in the separate corners here because I don't know, but I suspect that the 3 screws below may be shorter than the 3 that were going into the cross posts. And if they are, well, we're going to find out. Yes, they are. Okay, so the 3 screws below go into the reel seat. The 3 screws above, or the longer ones, go into the cross posts. It seems to just be stuck in there, but it's loose. Probably get the same thing here. Okay, let's find out what's going on in the cross plate then. Let's knock that other one out so we don't lose that. And those 3 will go into a corner of that parts tray as well. Well, underneath is an interesting design here. I haven't seen it, but it is interesting. I've seen things similar to that. This is a combination yoke and jack, so when you swing this arm, this little lever here is going to swing over a bump. That's going to pull this whole assembly down. This assembly is got a catch for the pinion gear, and if we move this, I'm going to guess that it's going to push it down. Yep. When it pushes it down, it's going to disengage that from the spool. And then when you push it back, it's going to release that. There's got to be a spring under here somewhere, and that's going to allow it to pop out. Well, I probably won't fiddle around too much with this piece. I'm going to clean it, but I don't think I'll remove it. To me, it looks like the only way to remove it is to take off this lever arm, and to me that looks like that might be a little bit of trouble. We're going to remove the bridge and the pinion gear. We're going to clean it up as best we can. All right, we're going to do that. The bridge has got 2 screws on it, so let's go ahead and get a screwdriver that's appropriate for that. And by appropriate, I mean it's not too thin where you can risk stripping the slots. That one's a little too thick too, so it looks like it's going to be this one. I would prefer to have this be a little wider, but so be it. And it also appears that the screw has a corresponding nut on the inside. So just keep those together. We'll go do it on this one too. So this technology was built pre-World War II, 1934 to 1940. Kind of amazes me. It's beautiful engineering. And Bronson was a player. Bronson reels, I believe, eventually got acquired by Ocean City. I'll have to go back and check that. Okay, on this side we have an anti-reverse, and you can see that there's a spring that just came loose, and this is why you take the pictures. This is a spring that just came loose, and it was against the screw on this side. That's probably why that screw wasn't coming out easily. And then I think we can just pull that out. That's your pinion gear, note the top. And as I mentioned, I am not going to remove that. There is a spring underneath here, but I think all of the cleaning that I want to do can be done without the removal of that piece. I'm going to flood that with some penetrating oil, flood the whole cavity. And you need to make a judgment when you're working on an older or a classic reel. You have to just understand the risks and the rewards of doing some things. And in this case, I'm a little bit concerned with that spring, and my concern goes to it possibly breaking or flying out and not finding it. And then of course, where's the spring or where's the replacement when you don't know what you're up against there. But that cleaned up nicely, and now I'll go behind that little lever with a cotton swab and get all the other dried greases and that out of there. If fishing reels can talk, just always curious about where they spent their existence and what kind of fish they caught, and even why they're still around. It's kind of interesting, right? After, as I mentioned, 40, well, that's 82 years, and if it was 34, it's even more. But the last year of production was 1940. So 82-year-old reel. I'm sure it's seen a lot of fish, had the opportunity to catch a lot of fish, and for the most part appears to have been taken care of to the point where, well, I don't know if Scott wants to strap this one on a rod, but I would bet that if you do, well, you're going to go catch some fish. Very interesting reel. Scott also sent me one, I think the other day. He sent me a Bridge City from Penn, and that was also the same. So sometimes I don't think that the folks that are selling these reels have a clue about the reel itself. It's just an old reel to them. And sometimes you can even find it pretty cheap. I don't know what Scott paid for it, but I would bet pretty cheap. All right, well, I'm happy with the disposition of that. All of the greases and oils and junk behind that little lever are clear. The spring is good. All of this mopped up nicely. So, big issue all the time with these, of course, is the drag washers. Are they still any good? And if they are good, wonderful. If they're not, how do you replace them? And that's going to be an interesting thing to find out. All right, we have a drag stack here. We have the collar, we have the main gear, and then we have a gear sleeve that's held on by a screw. Well, just like we did with that other assembly there, if I can't get the spring out, or the screw out, we'll work around it, but it looks like that screw should come out. Just not sure. Well, it's not coming out, it's pulling on this. So we're going to have to work around that. Again, I don't want to break a screw, lose the bridge. So there's a post back here. If I turn the screw, you see the post is moving. So we're going to leave it at that. That's probably frozen on. There is some cleaning to be done around that. I'm just going to use my pick here to remove that old grease. And so much of real service and repair is simply about getting the old greases and oils out of there, inspecting the pieces and parts, and then doing a lubrication to ensure that it stays nice and fresh. Well, this is why that front was moving. It's because the back is moving. Back is moving because the screw is not completely tight, but there's nothing we can do about that, short of risking breaking it open. All right, that bridge is pretty clean. We're going to turn our attention to see what we have here for drag washers. It should be the leather washers, I would think. Yeah, interestingly enough. So for the most part, these seem to be in good condition. Just wanted to tap that metal one out there. Got one underneath it here. And I make a habit, I don't like to force these out. If they're not coming out, then I'm not going to push them out at the risk of tearing them. But these seem to be pretty hard washers here. And amazingly, after all of this time, they're still going. And they're good. Look at that, 80-year-old washers, and they're good. How do you like that? Okay, there's one washer that's pressed into the bottom of the case there. We're going to leave it right there. We have 3 metal washers. We have, well, instead of an eared washer that would hook into the outside of the case, we have internal ears. We have a slot on this side and a slot on that. So the middle washer will get the that eared one. There's one in here I mentioned already. These have got a lot of grease on them. You don't need to do anything. Next one up was this heavy rubber, or I'm going to guess it's a leather washer. Okay, once you've pressed that in, then the next one up is another thin. And we saw this fabric washer was the top washer. Probably should have put this all on the post to begin with. And then we locked that whole post in with that piece and then the collar. So pretty straightforward in terms of the loading of this. Just like that. All right, let's just go over and clean this pinion gear then. If you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and you're having a hard time getting an answer, maybe you're working on something, you're a little stuck, then I would encourage you to leave that question in the comment section of the video. It doesn't have to be on this reel, it can be on any reel, but leave it in the comment section and I will try to get you an answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll try and point you to where you might be able to get that answer. Okay, so we've just cleaned all of this up. It's a beautiful gear. One of the things you can certainly say about the old-time reels, the 30s, 40s, 50s, boy, they didn't spare anything. There's no plastic. There's good materials throughout, and those things tend to last and last and last. I'm just going to run a Q-tip through the center to make sure we get the dirt out of that. We're going to take a little bit of grease, get that onto the yoke here. I'll put a little bit more grease into that slot, just where that yoke is going to ride. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that. And I think the best answer here is probably to put that down into the free spool mode, just so it gets out of the way when we go to install the main gear. Now I got to check here. I think the main gear, yeah, the main gear is going to have a little bit of play in it. I'm going to go ahead and get a healthy dose of grease onto the main gear. I'm using Penn Precision Real Grease for this. And making sure it has a nice amount there. Okay, I want to put that bridge screw through the one hole that's going to have the anti-reverse. I'm going to put the spring in the way we found it. So one end of this spring is going to hold tension against the cover here, and the other end is going to be compressed against that dog, and that's what's going to hold that dog in place nice and tight. So let's go ahead and put that bridge in. And I think you come in from underneath, and I think we just did it. I think it was pretty simple. So let's tighten this down and see if we have that clicker working there. Let's put the other one through. We know we have the nuts that we have to put on this. Then I'm going to grab the nut for the one and start threading that. And we'll do the same on this side. So very interesting design, relatively simple. Simple doesn't mean it's ineffective. If there's something I give them credit for most of the time, it's just that. Let's see if we have an anti-reverse now. Yeah, listen to that click, click, click going. So we've got the clicker installed properly. And once we trip this back down, we should be turning that gear. We're in good condition. All right, let's go clean up the rest of this. And then what we can do is we can go reinstall, give it a final test. The spool, as you might imagine, after all that time, has got a lot of dried grease on it. That dried grease was thrown from the gearing set. So we're going to go ahead and just put some penetrating oil on there, and generally a soft towel and some penetrating oil will clean all of that up, just like that. I have to do the same on the other side. And this is where you always get into the conversations when you're restoring an old reel. Should I leave the patina like this? Should I try to bleach it or remove that piece? And I tend to just leave it as it is. I think that the story of the reel itself is probably enhanced by seeing the old patinas on it, knowing it got its use, and whatever things there are there, I tend to just like to leave them there. Just because I think it tells a better story than a homogenized version of a reel. So I'm going to leave all of this on here. Let's see if we can do. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that patina on here. All right, there's not much left here. I'm going to grab a little brush for the studs on both sides of the spool. Put a little bit of grease into that side place bearing. So if you're like Scott, if you have a reel that needs some service, maybe you're afraid to service it, maybe you don't have the time to service it, whatever the case may be, I do service reels by mail. And if you send me an email to the address on the business card that's attached, I will be happy to provide you with service and repair information. Okay, got that one down. This one looks like I have one more turn left in it. There's 3 long screws. Remember what we said about the long screws? They go into cross posts. And I like to do these kind of balanced so that I have equal tension across the reel. So I started on the top, I went to the left, now I'm going to the right. Then we'll drop the ones in below. Starting with the center. We'll tie in the reel seat here. Two more. Beautiful old reel. Bronson Viking, 300-yard capacity. I think that may have been subclassified as the 600. I'm not quite sure. But if you see a 600 Bronson somewhere, there's a good chance that that's what they're referring to. We cleaned up the old dirt on the back of this one. Let's go ahead and put that back on. Got the handle goes next. Oh, we had that shim washer between the handle. Then the handle. I don't mind taking dirt and grease off. I do mind taking patina and that off. So, Scott, if you want to clean it up a little bit further, if you don't want the patina, that one's on you. All right, then a cap. Tighten down the drag. I think that's why the handle was loose, because the drag wasn't tightened properly. Tighten up the handle. It's a wooden handle. It was painted black at one point. You can use the oils, and actually the oils probably will help. It'll probably swell that wood a little bit. All right, let's see how we did. After all these years, huh? Look at that spin. Still spinning beautifully. I'd like to find some reels today that can do that. No bearings, bushings. Just a beautiful little reel all around. Okay, that's the Bronson Viking. It's circa 1930s, late 1930s, between 1934 and 1940. Wonderful reel. And before we go, I want to say thank you to our first responders and essential personnel, to all that are keeping us safe during the pandemic. I appreciate everything it is that you're doing. Thank you for everything it is. Please, to everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And one more comment. Those drags are holding. Go figure. All right, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Everybody, please have a great day.